It's the Friendly Fire Show, episode 162 for the almost end of September 2020. I'm one of your hosts, Steve from Stevivor.
I'm your other host, Ben from Stevivor.
And we're doing this like at an actual, we're doing this, Ben. That's end of story. We're actually recording this podcast at a fairly regular pace.
It's a few days later than I thought we would do it, but we're still on track for like weekly episodes because things keep happening, Steve. It's outrageous.
And we've done this so late because this week has been Hell Week, really.
Yeah, and we have an embargo to keep. So the earliest we could put this podcast out was Friday morning. So that's why you're hearing this then, even though it's Thursday in our life. Crazy
And
how the internet works.
It's going to be out Friday morning. I'm not going to do, I'm not, we're recording this and then I'm going to walk away from my computer and probably watch Star Trek and it's going to be great.
Yeah, well, you can't put it out any earlier, so bad luck.
Well, exactly. There's tons to talk about, so let's just get straight into it. The first thing is we woke up on Tuesday morning thinking we were just going to, wake up and pre-order an Xbox. And there was a huge piece of news that came before that, that being that Microsoft spent $7.5 billion and just, casually acquired ZeniMax Media, better known to most people as Bethesda and Bethesda Softworks and all of their studios.
Yep, so Phil's walked in and just dropped 7.5 bill, which is getting up there. So this is making, what did they pay for Minecraft? About 1.5 or 2 or something. It's making that look cheap.
Yeah. And I don't think they ever said what, because there were all those rumors that Warner Brothers was up for sale. And I don't think figures were ever kind of discussed. Maybe they were. I can't remember though.
There was a rumor for 4 billion, which is now pocket change if half price, but they wouldn't have got the IPs they would have gotten here because Warner Bros. Is so licensed and they don't get those. Whereas ZeniMax or Bethesda have heaps of IPs, some of them dormant even, that they can now launch on Game Pass. So that's the go.
Yeah, and studios or / titles include, we'll go titles first, maybe Doom, Fallout, The Elder Scrolls, The Evil Within, Prey, Dishonored. There's probably more. And studios including, Bethesda Game Studios, Arcane, Tango Softworks, Machine Games, Wolfenstein, there's one that I forgot. Just like they went from 15 or something, 13, 14, 15 studios to 23 all up now.
So they got 8 new studios as of now because this merger won't be complete until about mid-21. Xbox has 14 studios plus Xbox Publishing, so 15 if you include them, and PlayStation has 13 plus their publishing arm too. So they're pretty much the same, actually. A lot of people think PlayStation has a lot more, but at the moment they're pretty much on par. Xbox actually has an extra studio, but Xbox's studios are all very focused on one thing. So you have Undead Labs only just Dead of Decay, you have Turn 10 only really do Forza. One of the studios only does Age of Empires. Mojang obviously only does Minecraft, really. So they're very much a one studio team. You have a few like Playground Games who are now working on 2 things. They've split their team in 2 to work on Fable. Whereas Sony studios are a lot more, we work on multiple projects. And I think that's what they're going to get here. You're going to get, they've got 8 new studios and they're all a bit more diverse. They can work on different types of stuff. And it's a lot of stuff that Xbox don't have.
Yeah.
So Xbox have always been the king of shooters in terms of first party exclusives. Now they're definitely that with, having Doom as an exclusive. But they're probably also the king of RPGs. They've got Obsidian and Bethesda themselves. So that's massive.
Yeah, and like in Exile, they have a whole bunch of studios. They had some RPG studios. Now they have a whole bunch more. And obviously now like Obsidian and Bethesda Game Studio sitting in the same Xbox Game Studios banner. People have been dying for Fallout New Vegas 2, and like the studios attached to that can theoretically make this now. There's so much stuff to kind of think about how it's all going to work, and we don't know the answer about everything for certain, but things we do know, the Elder Scrolls Online will remain on its current platform, so people playing on PS4 won't suddenly like find the servers deleted. That's been confirmed. Phil Spencer's also confirmed that the timed exclusive period of 1 year on PS5 for the 2 games being Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo, Microsoft's going to honor that. So randomly, Microsoft is potentially, by that point when the merger's over, hopefully, it takes a little bit longer because it's way funnier, we'll be putting Xbox Game Studios games on PlayStation, but not on Xbox. That's weird
quite
to me.
likely the first two games. Well, they'll probably be out before the merger is just finished. At least one of them. But the newest games from Bethesda are going to be exclusive to PlayStation and PC. But they are coming to PC, so they could come to Game Pass or PC day one still. I don't know if they will, but that is an option,
Oh
presumably.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but I'm thinking that's a contract which is just too hard to get out of. It's a bit of Phil has never gone back on previous contracts. There's always kind of honored what's there. If anything was announced, it's always on both platforms. I think it's also just a mix of it's too hard to get out of it. We don't
Yeah.
want to get involved in that.
You look good because you're like gaming's for everyone. We're not gonna get in the way of that. But also, I'm sure there's a legal precedent there. Same thing like when Microsoft bought Obsidian before the Outer Worlds was released, and that was still a multi-platform release.
But of
Minecraft
course,
obviously remains multi-platform, even though Mojang was brought into the fold. Sorry.
what they did do is they made Outer Worlds a Game Pass Day One game, which it wouldn't have been otherwise.
But that works to Microsoft's favor because either you're getting Game Pass because you want the game really badly on an Xbox ecosystem platform, or you're buying the game. Well, this one's a bit. It's not quite the same because it was published by a private division, so they weren't getting as big of a cut if someone would buy it for PS4 or something. But if we're talking about like Bethesda games, I guess that's a good segue to this. So things like the Elder Scrolls 6 and Starfield, it's not confirmed what's going to happen to those games. And Phil Spencer said it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. So we could see these games being multi-platform where Microsoft, either pushes you to Game Pass or gets a cut of a game sale on PS5.
For
Or they lock it down. And,
which one are you going to get?
Or they lock it down and it's only on Xbox. It's that weird thing though of Phil being so like, gaming's for anybody, play wherever you want, play on the platform you want. For Sony to have all these weird timed exclusives, and it's like people hate it. I hate it. I think it's stupid. It's going to be damaging for Xbox to kind of turn around and do that, even though they're first party games. I think what they should do. Sorry, I'll stop. I'll have a breath in a second, and then you can talk. I think anything that's already been kind of announced and out there, exactly as you would expect it. And now at least we have the added bonus of Sony can't keep buying the timed console exclusive stuff. It just comes out for everything. And then when Bethesda starts announcing new stuff like the Elder Scrolls 7, which is not a thing, like that is Xbox because it's decidedly first party at that point. What do you think? And I'll shut up.
I think it could go either way. I think so. There was talk, well, not even talk. It's pretty much confirmed that Sony was trying to get timed exclusivity of Starfield.
Yeah.
So those people must be sitting in their office on Tuesday morning going, "Oh, you kidding me?" They've just done months of work on this, which is now not going to happen. I think there's a few ways you can look at it. Those games didn't have a platform announced. So the Outer Worlds did have PS4 announced. You honored that. These ones are just called next gen or whatever Bethesda said. So I think you can make them Xbox exclusive and get away with it. For the play on the platform you want, now that Xbox is on PC, Xbox, both gens, and mobile, that's probably enough for Phil to say get it on what you want. It's just missing PlayStation.
Yeah.
So it is, do you want to play on, because he can kind of now rephrase that as, do you want to play on console? Do you want to play on PC? Do you want to play on mobile? We let you play wherever you want. We're giving you all the options, just not PS5. And the other way to look at it would be to say, well, Elder Scrolls is an established franchise. It has its history with Xbox. So Morrowind was on Xbox first, I think. Oblivion was on Xbox first, and they came to PS later. And then say Starfield is a new IP. So it's starting out on Xbox as an exclusive, wouldn't really be a big thing. There's no history on PlayStation, so they could do that. I'm thinking the fact that Deathloop is on PlayStation exclusively, they're going to do the same thing with Elder Scrolls and Starfield. They're too big of games to say, we'll just give these away. Maybe they'll be timed exclusive on Game Pass, get it first here and we'll sell it to you later. That's kind of what Netflix does with some of its stuff. It's on Netflix first, and if you really don't want Netflix, you can buy it on Blu-ray 6 months later.
Yeah. Spencer's bashed timed exclusive stuff, even though
from other parties, not his own stuff.
No, and I think they did it with Rise of the Tomb Raider and caught a lot of flack, and then I can't remember. I don't have the quote or anything with me, but I'm pretty sure he's kind of said, "Yeah, we're not doing that again. We don't like that practice."
Yeah, but that's a third party deal. This is stuff that he owns, so it's different.
But it's kind of like that. I don't know. He's kind of damned if he does or damned if he doesn't. I guess in my summary, like there's a big enough Sony PlayStation, not even fan base, but like install base that like you're not going to make anyone happy with one decision, or everyone happy with one decision.
No, that's true. But I would be surprised if both of those were on PlayStation. I think maybe Elder Scrolls will be
Because it's established, and then
because it's established. Starfield is an easy one to say. This is a new thing. It's only on not only on Xbox. It's on PC. It's on your phone. By then, it's probably on your TV only because this game is like 3 or 4 years away.
Yeah,
plenty of places to play. So we'll see what happens.
It's very interesting. Xbox Game Pass has teased that Doom Eternal is probably the first Bethesda game heading to Game Pass, which makes sense because in, I think, mid-October, the first real expansion for Doom Eternal comes out. So it's great for Microsoft in that you put out the game for free. Well, not for free, but as part of the subscription pass. And if people really like it, they'll drop some extra cash theoretically on the DLC. So makes sense.
Probably one of the things that's gone under the radar a little bit is Xbox has finally gotten a Japanese studio in Tengo Softworks. So they are the Evil Within, and that Evil Within 3 could go either way. You'd think it sells pretty well in Japan, so they would put it on PlayStation. That's probably one of the ones they're talking about when they're saying case by case. I think something more like that.
Yeah.
But Xbox has been talking for ages how they want to get more in Japan, and they've kind of snuck in a studio. So it'll be interesting to see. Our mate Shinji is, of course, there.
Yeah, mate Shinji.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that's extremely exciting to me because I'm kind of getting sick of RPGs only because I just want to have a little bit more time to myself than having to play through like an Obsidian game for 60 hours or something. But it does, yeah, like there's so many things, and it addresses the single player thing that, like, oh, Microsoft doesn't have a lot of single player games that are like narrative driven and this and that, the other, like Sony does. Well, there's a lot of opportunity now for that to change, which is very good.
Well, that's the other thing. It wouldn't surprise me to see more anything that comes out of this, which is multi-platform, be go nuts. It's on every platform. It's free to play. It's cross-play. But the big single player games that Xbox don't have, they are only on Xbox.
Yeah. It'll be interesting, and we should stop speculating because it's case by case, and there's arguments to be made.
Yeah, we have no
every
idea.
Single which way.
There's heaps there. I think you could get some of these studios on existing Xbox franchises. You could get some Bethesda franchises that haven't done much recently to go to they can move across. Yeah. So I know that Perfect Dark is likely at the Initiative. That's what we've heard a lot about. But imagine like an Arcane or someone doing a Perfect Dark. Like you've got that.
And if it's not that far along, you could can we borrow that id Tech engine that we've purchased now? Or do you want to use this in your games, Bethesda? So yeah, there's some really cool, we've barely scratched the surface of what this acquisition means. And that's kind of really exciting. Something that was less exciting by about 20 minutes in was the Xbox Series pre-order debacle. And not only Australia, it kind of just went around the world, depending on the time of the day. You could just see it kind of, the wave hitting people. Long story short, everybody probably got a pre-order in the end. It just took all day when you thought it was maybe going to take 15, 20 minutes at the very, very start of it. Is that a fair assessment? Well, yeah,
I did not think that I was going to easily get a PS5 pre-order and really struggle to get an Xbox Series X. But that's what happened. I think I got lucky in the end. So let's start at the beginning of the day, shall we?
Oh, God.
I think we'll both, everyone else.
The beginning of the day was I had to write up a whole bunch of stories about Bethesda being acquired by Microsoft. Fast forward to 8 o'clock in the morning, that morning. We're all sitting there logged into EB Games with our log username and password signed in, our click and collect ready to go with our store of choice, because let's be honest, no one trusts the post to get these damn things to you. You want to go and pick it up, even though it's the middle of a pandemic. Hovered over the Xbox thing. There was a counter even that, counted down to 0. You didn't have to refresh the page. It just did it for you. You click order, you click pay, and then it just kind of sits there and thinks for 2-3 minutes. And then you repeat that about 20 times. And then EB Games tweets, "Oh, our allocation has been exhausted. Thanks for coming out. Pre-orders are done."
Yeah, well, I didn't even get to pay. I got signed out about 4 times and had to sign back in. I got to the button where you had to click done, which was to confirm your address, and I kept getting an error has occurred. You've tried too many times. Oh. And so this is why I didn't end up getting one, because if you got to hit the pay button, about 6 hours later, you found out you did get one.
7, in fact. 7. Yes, because that happened to me. So I thought I didn't get one at 8 o'clock, so I was pissed off and thinking I was maybe even going to try to get 2, one for each EB account that I had set up on each screen. But no, 0. But then 7 hours later, I got an email saying, "Oh yeah, you did." But by then, I'd already gone to Target because you could see like the wave of people hitting retailers and like immediately like exhausting them. The Microsoft Store, Big W. So I went to Target because I like Target popped up and I was sitting there. I'm like, oh, so I told everybody else on Twitter and then I bought one myself. But I did click and collect again, and that's what you did as well.
Yep. So I got one at Target due to your. Well, before that, I think I got one at JB. They took my money. They never emailed me about it.
Oh,
So I think it's not in a launch shipment, and that is getting cancelled because later in the day, you tweeted that Target was open. They took all your money. You then later got an email saying it's cancelled. We can't fulfill this. I got one saying, congratulations, we'll give it to you, which is a bit strange that you charge
and
full
I wasn't
price.
mad at in the slightest. I was very happy about it.
Well, you'd already arranged an EB one by that point, so it kind of worked out well for you.
Well, yeah. So I pre-ordered it. They had to review it because it was click and collect. So they didn't actually confirm at Target, but they took your money straight away.
Whole price, $750.
Yeah, and then so 3 p.m. I got an email that was 7 hours after EB's pre-orders went up and down. They emailed saying, "Oh, surprise! Actually, you do have one. Cool, right?" And then at 3:30, I got an email from Target saying, "Nah, you don't get one." And they refunded the money like straight away. So as quickly as they took the money, they put it back. So good on them for that, at least. Other shenanigans like
After
Telstra.
that, Telstra's done pretty well. After that, EB had their second wave, which was meant to be at 12, and
Yeah.
it said launch shipment. And then at about 10 to 12, it changed to post-launch and changed to 3 p.m.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on at EB. They're totally confused themselves.
Well, I think people kind of called it that their website broke and no one actually got to pre-order at 8 o'clock in the morning. And then they just didn't say anything for a good long while. And it's like, so are you just going to try again? And it turns out they kind of did, but that was the second shipment. And they had to go through all of their transaction logs, I guess, and see who they took money from but didn't confirm properly, like me, I guess. And then went through all that. And it took them like 7 hours to figure that out. And then they did round two.
Everyone had trouble, but fair to say EB had the worst experience. Telling people 7 hours later you've got one after they probably got one somewhere else is not ideal.
Well, and it's everyone went EB. If I'm this is definitely true. Everybody has the intent of taking in their old consoles to EB, and because you get a decent trade-in value there, that's totally why people would have picked EB first. 100%.
And then
excuse me.
Several others opened. Telstra were giving Wave 2 out, which then updated the next day to say, actually, your Wave 1, we've changed their mind. They seem to have heaps because of all access.
They had this weird system where they had an online allocation, and then they somehow decided that people were just going to rock up into brick and mortar stores because it's not 2020 and a pandemic. So they realized that they exhausted the online orders like almost immediately. And then people for like the rest of the day could go into shops and queue up and like get a Wave 1 from your actual Telstra shop, unless you're in Victoria, of course, or Melbourne. So I don't even know how the lockdown works anymore. Victorians probably couldn't. And then they realized that was probably unfair. So they started pulling allocations out of stores and putting it to the online orders, but like moving existing orders into Wave 1 instead of Wave 2. And I think
so you
that's
might
it.
Get lucky. Well, EB did the same thing.
X is exhausted now. They're Wave 2 for sure, but they still have Wave 1 Series S's.
So they're the only ones left, really, because everyone else is saying we're exhausted 2020 stock, for now at least.
Yeah.
Well, they're not taking pre-orders. Amazon opened at 6 p.m. for about 30 seconds, as far as I could tell. So good luck to you if you got one from Amazon, which was really weird. I don't know what's going on there because they're pretty reliable for the PS5. So just a total disaster. We had two strategies. We had the Sony Quiet surprise that's opening right now. And then we had a lot of notice Xbox. And I think a lot of people rightly called that there were loads of scalpers and bots buying them. So
yeah. Well, it's strange. For a good portion of the day, I thought I'd have a PS5 pre-order in 2020 and not an Xbox Series X pre-order. And that was blowing my mind. In other news, we can now confirm, Ben, that Stevivor is part of the Xbox Series X preview program, which means even though a lot of the outlets in America have received theirs already, we're obviously in Australia, and our shiny Xbox Series X is on the way. We should get it in early October-ish, and we're allowed to do impressions and stuff very shortly afterwards. So obviously,
it's a whole month early. You can be playing those next-gen features on your backwards compatible games.
And it's exciting because we're like single digits. There's single-digit consoles being sent to Australia, and we are obviously one of those single digits. And I think globally, it's not triple digits; it's only 2 digits of outlets getting it around the world for
Good
the
work,
preview
Australia.
program.
That's
So
what we deserve.
yes, to check us out and stuff. We'll have good comments. There was a little bug flying around. Sorry, I just clapped and realized I was being recording. I am recording. And I
That's how
didn't even
excited you
kill the
are.
bug. And I didn't even kill the bug.
You're
Cool.
getting an Xbox a month early and you're focusing on a bug.
Yeah, well, it's been one of those weeks. We also got a cool Xbox Light box. If you want to see my bad cable management, you can go and look at our Instagram and check it out. It's interesting. It's not as big as I thought it would be, but it's still pretty chunky. Like it fits in my TV cabinet, but it's that it fits where you're like, does it fit? Does it need more ventilation than that?
Well, you
Um,
asked Xbox and they said it was
and they said
okay.
yes, because as long as you have the air shooting out the top, or it could be out the side, obviously, if it's horizontally out into kind of like a very well ventilated space, you're fine. Um, I think the probably easiest thing for people to do is to try to stick it behind their TV, if I'm being honest, because if you move your TV up, maybe on your TV stand, if you don't have room otherwise, kind of
Yep.
just sits behind it. It's not like you need to really like, unless you're using a disc-based one and stuff and replacing discs all the time, it's not really a big deal. Anyway, expansion card pricing. We finally know what the 1 terabyte Seagate
Oh,
Seagate produced.
to get made. I better sit down for this. This is outrageous. It is.
$359. You might as well have just made it
Oh,
360 just to make it even more confusing. I'd like an Xbox 360, please. We knew this was going to be that expensive, but it still sucks. Like it
I
just
didn't know it was going to
hurts.
be that much. I thought they were going for about 250 if they could get to
It's
it.
not proprietary. It's just like a very new SSD, solid state drive, and the tech is very new, but the tech is what allows for these non-existent loading times and stuff with games.
Mm.
The PlayStation 5 is going to use a similar SSD, but they're not making their own or not getting Seagate to make one for them. So you'll have to go and buy, like I think we talked about this last week, a compliant drive, and they're priced around the same kind of window. So it's, like storage is going to be expensive.
Important to note, you can plug in your hard drive already and play your last gen games on them, and you can store new games there. You just have to move them across to the internal drive. But it does make you think. So the Xbox Series S has basically half the storage of the Series X. So there's a $250 price gap there. The memory to expand and just play straight off the console is 360. You may as well just put in the extra 250 now, get the more powerful machine, get the disk drive, and get the extra storage. Like I think it's devalued the Series S quite a lot.
Yeah, it really has actually. And I don't know what the solution is to that. There isn't a solution.
No, in time they will come down cheaper. I'm sure in probably a year, maybe two, there's going to be those third-party options that work in the drive. Probably they're still going to be crazy expensive. Probably not quite as much as an Xbox branded one.
Yeah.
But you can't even buy one for PS5, right? Like the
No,
drives that
not
you
yet.
need,
I think
whatever
there's
they're
one
called,
from Samsung or something, but
NVMe or whatever it is,
it's
they're
the
so
same kind of
rare.
thing for the TV though. Like if you need an HDMI 2.1
Hmm.
capable TV to get 4K or 8K and 120 frames out of these devices, and no one has an HDMI 2.1
Well, I
my
do.
TV. Well, you might because you just bought your damn TV,
I bought one earlier this year. It's
but
great.
not a lot of people do. Is my point.
Yeah.
But then again, I don't think a lot of games are going to run 4K and 120 frames anyway. So
No, so if you have an older TV, like the OLEDs for the past few years prior to 2019 are all 4K 60,
yeah,
which is still going to be most games, or you can just change it yourself. I think even to 1440p 120, or might be 1080
yeah.
120.
Well,
So
I know that the
good
Xbox will do
options.
1440 and 120 just fine. I don't know if the PlayStation does though, because if it's like the PlayStation Pro, it kind of does like an upscaling thing, and it looks kind of garbage. So you can either go like 1080
Oh,
um,
okay.
or 4K. But like 1080 and 120 frames a second is just fine too, guys. Like you're gonna find some
Yeah.
pleasure in that.
I think there's going to be a few games that use that, but you'll be able to choose. It would be great instead of setting the console to what it is, if you could set each game to say, all right, this game does support 120 frames per second. So when I launch this, I want the console to change back to 1080 so I can use my 120 on my TV. Everything else, I want it to be 4K. I don't know
Yeah,
if
it
that is
seems like
available.
I think so. Like things like Avengers let you, even now you can go to 1080 and 60 frames or you can go
that's pretty
4K
good.
and 30. So like I think that's going to become more common
You
between
still to make
games.
sure the output of the console to the TV is 1080, not 4K
Oh,
upscaled.
does that change that?
Yeah, because
Oh, yeah, right.
Your TV
Yeah,
is
yeah,
getting a
yeah.
4K signal, so it can't do
Yeah.
120. It needs to
So
get a 1080 signal.
Avengers tells the Xbox to
Tell
downgrade
it.
it.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right.
They will think about that surely.
They'd have to.
But you can tell us soon because you're going to be in the preview program, maybe. I don't know if that's
Well,
allowed, but
yeah, no, yeah,
you can check
I,
that stuff.
yeah, I think so. I don't know. Like, there's certain embargoes on what I can and can't say until a certain date, but
We'll
I
be
can
able to
tell
tell you
people that I'm
before
in the
launch
program.
at some
We
point.
are in the program,
Hmm.
and hopefully you're going to help me before that program is fully through. The next last thing of newsy things. Oh, xCloud or Xbox Game Pass Cloud Streaming or whatever the hell it's called, because it seems to have like 5 names at this point, is now available in a lot of regions, but not Australia. Phil Spencer has told SkillUp that Australian teams are working on it, and we should see that in early 2021. But I just kind of said 2021. Like, let's not get people's hopes up. This is COVID times and everything's a mess, which is cool. I don't know if there's much to say about that.
No, it adds the extra. I mean, you're paying for it already in Game Pass Ultimate, so it adds extra value. Phil even said your new network makes it better, referring to the NBN, which announced this week that they're going to go to fiber to the premises. I don't know if you saw this. A bunch of people who are going to the node from the node at the moment, just on copper, will be able to request. I assume they have to pay. I don't know if it's covered.
No, they don't have to pay.
Don't have to pay.
But they won't get it done unless they ask.
Okay, so basically you need to be paying attention, and you can get the internet that you should have got to begin with. So that's exciting.
Well, and then like I'm on HFC and I'm pulling in 100 meg down, and apparently as part of the upgrade, I'm going to get gigabit speeds, and so will you. That's part of the plan as well. But like in the next 3 or 4 years,
HFC, there's not anything to do with your house. You've already got the wiring, which is good enough. They're updating the back end of the HFC, which is like from the 90s. To bring that up to speed with 2020 tech, and then that will give you crazy speeds if that works. So they're doing what they should have done from the beginning, and that will allow us to stream games on our phones.
Hurrah! Cool. Let's get into reviewy things. I want to talk really quickly because it's almost a non-story. There's other things that I will eventually be able to talk about. I got to check out NHL 21, but the only thing I can talk about is a new mode called Hut Rush, and the Hut stands for Hockey Ultimate Team, which is that kind of shitty microtransaction-y, like buy card packs bullshit. But Hut Rush is kind of cool. Alexander Ovechkin is the cover star of NHL 21, and he is super charismatic. He has a giant personality. And you're starting to see more of that in the NHL right now, but like he kind of like led that for the last 15 years. So because we're not getting a next gen version, and because they kind of get the lowest budget, he's the cover star, and the emphasis on NHL 21 is like crazy over the top shenanigans. So Hut Rush is basically that. It's 3 versus 3 or 5 versus 5 or 6 versus 6, I should say, because there's goalies. And that's weird because they call it 3s, but there's actually 4 people on the rink because there's 3 players and a goalie. Anyway, I digress.
Ask him about that.
Yeah, that's a burning question. You basically get points for style. So if you do this cool deke and then you pass it to someone, you do a one-timer, you get more points as opposed to just like boringly shooting the puck in the net. And that's kind of it. We have a whole bunch of gameplay that was B-roll, so not recorded by us, but still pretty indicative of what to expect, and a bit of a write-up on the website if you are so inclined. And there's more stuff that I get to write about NHL at the start of October that I can't talk about yet.
So you, as always, are the only Australian
outlet
covering NHL.
/ only Australian who cares. That's not true. There's a lot of Australians who do. So thank you for stopping by and giving it a read. But yeah, no one else cares to write about it, which is silly because it's clearly the best sports game in the world, even if it doesn't get half as much budget as any other.
Well, you think you've got it bad. Just look at the Australian sport games, and there's some real challenges there.
That's true. I had a copy of Tennis World Tour 2 for review, and I decided not to review it because I was too frustrated to play it for very long.
Okay, that's not ideal.
No. Anyway, you got to play Mafia Definitive Edition, and you enjoyed it and played through it all, and even wrote a review that goes up at 1:00 in the morning today.
Yeah, what time of listening, you can read that review right now.
Hmm.
Very
So
good.
kill this podcast, stop listening, and just go read Ben's words.
That's it.
Far more articulate than what we're going to be.
Straight off the bat, really ridiculous name because the other Mafia 2 and 3 definitive editions are really basic remasters, and this is a full remake with the same name. So you know that. Most listeners probably know that, but I think the average person might not realize that. It's a bit strange to have done that. Anyhow, Mafia is a game from 2002, which was originally on PC. Then there was a real dodgy, by comparison, PS2 and Xbox version like 2 years later. So that's pretty much all I remember. I don't know if you played the originals.
I don't think I did.
I think I played it it was one of those games I rented on PS2 and played briefly, and I have like this real vague memory thinking it was going to be like GTA, and it wasn't really. And I actually went back and read my review for Mafia 2, which I did 10 years ago, which is how long I've been doing this, as it turns out. And I complained.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah. I complained about how boring the driving segments were and how there was this open world which was unused basically, and how it just funneled you along the story missions and there were no side missions. And now that I'm old and jaded, I really love that. I think the way that the open world of New Haven, which is basically 1930s Prohibition era Chicago, is kind of the backdrop. So it's there, things are happening, but you're really pushed along this fast-paced story, which is driven by some pretty good cutscenes that kind of engage you a lot. So I only watched The Irishman a couple of weeks ago, which then drove me to rewatch Godfather and Part 2. And so I was really wanting to play this like period piece Mafia style game, and there's nothing this generation really, like nothing new at least, like not that I can think of. So I replayed Mafia 2 a couple of weeks ago. Fantastic still. Mafia 3 was a bit troubled in its development.
Not as good.
And quite different. And the problem is, thinking back on Mafia 3, is it was this copy and paste. You need to go beat the mob boss. You need to like follow this same formula. The original Mafia is not like that at all. Each mission is quite different. So you do kill people, but it's not super action focused. Like you just kind of along this ride of the story. So really enjoyed that. It looks pretty good, but also it looks dodgy at the same time. So for the most part, it's good, but there's these cold, dead eyes of Tommy, who's the protagonist, this cabby driver who kind of works his way through the I've forgotten the name of the family now, even though I've been playing it for ages.
Yeah,
with an
I
S.
forget it too. Yeah.
Anyway, doesn't matter.
It's not Silencio, but I keep wanting to say Silencio.
It's something like that.
It's not, though.
It's not.
Salentino. No, that's not right. It's closer, but it's not right.
Close. It doesn't matter.
Unimportant. You haven't even played the game, have you? What BS. He hasn't
killed
even played
loads
the game.
of people.
Anyway.
Actually, you don't kill that many people. So Tommy's a bit different to Vito in the second game, whereas Vito was kind of this established mafia guy to begin with, or at least kind of felt like he was coming back from war and he was kind of straight into it. Tommy's a bit more apprehensive to begin with because it's just a taxi driver, and you kind of go on that story with him where he's really doesn't want to kill people at the start, and then by the end of it, he knows what he has to do.
I hope there's that like Far Cry 4 or 5 ending where like, because Tommy's pretty adamant that he doesn't want to get into the Mafia at the very start of the game, so I got to play the first couple hours. I just wish you could just be like, nah, you know what? I'm not doing this. Game over, credits, done. I'm imagining his life would be probably better in the end, but I obviously haven't played the rest of the story. So
the whole game is actually told by him, I think in like the early 50s, he's narrating it, but the game you play is set in the 30s. So there is an epilogue that jumps ahead. But
I've heard about that.
Stories.
Yeah, let's not talk about that.
Nope, we won't get into any story.
Exactly.
Cool. So the gameplay is based a lot more on Mafia 3 style. So it's updated, but it still feels a bit shoddy, as Mafia 3 was, a bit clumsy. But
it works better for an older game than one that's trying to be completely modern and new. Funny,
yeah, because it feels a bit like it looks new. Besides some weird lighting and weird pop-in, like you're just running along and an enemy pops in like 2 meters ahead of you. That's a bit weird. Hopefully that gets fixed. But it feels new, but it kind of feels old. There's just this essence of this was a PS2, like early 2000s PC game that is still there. And part of that is I'm sure you noticed when you played, the really clunky car driving controls. But that's
weird because the cutscenes make it look like so fluid and amazing, and then you take control and you're like, whoa, God.
But a lot of that is because you were basically driving a tank in the 30s. Like these are dodgy cars. So it does make sense. And then the pretty good shooting controls, but occasionally a little bit dodgy. I actually didn't mind because it fits the tone of the game. As weird as that is to sound, I actually like that it's not like quite fluid and perfect at all times.
like Grand Theft Auto kind of shooting feeling. Like it just never
Yeah,
quite feels good, but like it doesn't bother you that much.
pretty similar.
Yeah.
Except for the melee combat, which is dodgy as hell, and they should have updated that better. It feels like it's straight out of the PS2, but the rest of it is pretty good. But the reason you're playing this is it's totally different. It's not your Ubisoft bloated world open world. There's an open world there. You can explore it in just like a free exploration mode, but the reason to play this is the story. It's basically your classic mobster movie stretched out over about 12 hours. And yeah, that's why you want to play. It's really fun, looks cool, and it's way better than Mafia 2 is good, way better than Mafia 3, but it's still the best one. And I hope we get a Mafia 4 more like this.
So yeah, and I don't know the math. I was gonna say, so it's not worth buying Mafia trilogy, but it might be if you like, because you get 1 and 2 and skip
Two's
3.
great. You know, three's not bad. Like it's playable now. They fixed a lot of the glitches. It still has some interesting characters, but it's not the same. So,
But you're obviously rating them 1, 2, and then 3
absolutely,
in that order. Yeah,
if you're getting
ranking
I
them.
think the price difference isn't that big a deal. So you probably should just get the trilogy. If you haven't played any, if you already played the others like I have, you don't need them.
There you go. A good one's a short one and is a good one. I'm so tired. That was a saying that
We've done
it's
so
not
many
a saying.
podcasts.
Hmm.
Until Xbox buys another studio, probably
Don't
next
joke.
week.
Yeah, I was gonna say don't joke.
No,
Let's
they
not.
will. They're not done. I don't think they're done. I reckon they'll get a couple more.
Cool. Well, we will figure out when we'll talk to you next, but always just go to Stevivor and read things that we do. There's going to be a lot of stuff from Ben and I, especially going up in the next little while, I would think.
It's a busy time.
Yeah. Where do we find you on the internet otherwise?
I am Ben_Salter on Twitter, and yourself.
I don't know why that stumbled me. It stumbled you, but that's fine. You got there in the end. Wright AU on the internet, and it sounds like maybe I'll be able to go outside a little bit more, but I pretty much just live on the internet right now.
But you won't need to because you're going to have an Xbox Series X, so
Exactly.
no need to go outside.
And a $350 expansion card as well. That's the value right there.
Time to get saving, and we will see you in a couple of weeks.